As the team at DOGE embarks on an unprecedented effort to fulfill voters' wishes and roll back some of the federal government's power, the biggest barrier they're running into is the federal judiciary, which, to anyone who understands the de facto role of federal judges, is not a surprise. At the most basic level, judicial institutions are based on the idea that disputes between two parties are best settled by a neutral third party, or arbiter, who examines the evidence, determines the just truth of the matter, and then issues a ruling that both sides had previously agreed to abide by. This basic formula has been present to at least some extent in every successful civilization in history. But at certain points in the ancient world, Middle Ages, and most extensively in the last 400 years, specific groups seized a monopoly on the judiciary and declared themselves to be the final arbiter in all disputes within a given territorial area. That group was and is known as the state. And their monopoly status poses an important question. What about disputes that the state itself is involved in? Who is to arbitrate between the state and a private citizen who claims to have been wronged by the state? The answer today is the state. To hide how ridiculous this is, many modern states have turned to constitutions, where state officials set limits on what the state can do, to be enforced, of course, by the state. In the U.S., the state broke itself into what are essentially three big departments, with one of them, the judicial branch, tasked with preserving the limits placed on the organization it itself is a part of. If that were the true purpose of the federal government's judicial branch, it's hard to look at its history and conclude it's been anything short of an abysmal failure. The federal government has been transcending its self-imposed limits since the beginning. It's instituted a draft, price controls, put limits on private production and limits on free speech, placed government prohibitions on gun ownership, waged many undeclared wars, and much, much more. The American federal government is the largest, most powerful state in human history, and the federal courts have stamped their approval on its power grabs nearly every step of the way. Presenting our literal global empire is exactly what radical anti-government farmers like James Madison had in mind when writing the Bill of Rights. On balance, the federal judiciary has not kept the federal government within the limits it claims to uphold. It has given legitimacy to Washington's transcendence of those limits with its absolutist affirmation that this has all been constitutional. It is a lot more believable that this has been its true purpose. And if that's the case, it shouldn't be surprising at all that it falls on the federal judiciary to block and delegitimize the occasional effort to roll back the powers and programs of the federal government.